spirits in the spotlight. We put the spotlight on individuals and organizations who every day do so much to make sure that we move forward towards an inclusive society. Good afternoon and happy Pride! Members of the communities, allies, membres de la communauté, alliés, ambassadors, members of parliament, politicians. I'm told there's commissioners here from certain departments. Thank you so much for being here today. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we're gathered today and throughout the festival is the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. You should know that Two-Spirit people have often been at the forefront of inclusion and diversity in Canada. My name is David Sabourin. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the chairperson of the Board of Directors of Capital Pride. And I'm honored to welcome you all today. Thank you. As we kick off our 2019 festival with the flag raising. But before we begin, I'd like to take an opportunity to address some of the incidents of this weekend. On Saturday, ill-intentioned people attended a community drag storytime event in Bell's Corner. They interrupted the event, spewing hatred and violence. These actions have no place in our community. That children and their families be targeted specifically is deeply troubling, but we recognize that members of the 2S LGBTQ+ community, Indigenous communities alike, racialized people, immigrants, and religious groups face that all the time. These acts are aimed only at silencing and dividing our communities. But guess what? We won't stay silent. We will unite, and we will not stop our efforts to build a more inclusive society. We're queer, we're here, and we're here to stay.
Yeah, they've got it.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all living your life in a good way. I am a very proud Anishinaabe woman. My name is Barbara Dumont Hill. I am Turtle Clan and I was born on the Kittikumzibi Indian Reserve. Today I welcome you all on our beautiful, unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. You know, I couldn't help, as I'm standing there, I'm looking at those wild roses that are behind. And I see people chopping those down because they think they're a weed, because they think only the hybrid roses are the ones that matter. And, you know, I think of all the other weeds, as people call them, on this land that have grown here, like milkweed, which has so many healing properties and has a beautiful flower on it. It's different than a rose, a hybrid rose, but it is very important. Our land cannot live without it, just like we cannot live without you. It's so important for everyone to understand that we need all kinds to create what this land was meant to, what was meant to happen here on this land, to have great peace, where every nation of the world would be represented here, right here in this city, where all the diplomatic homes are. And we know after Saturday's incidents the work there is still to do. We think, a lot of people think that Canada, that we are so far advanced, but there is always that underlying hate, that when you walk into a place, you are judged by the way you look on the outside. Nobody thinks about what is on the inside. And it is so important for every one of us to understand that we all belong here. No one has a right to judge us. And for these who take advantage of a place where there is little children, shame on them.
Ari, bonjour, ouais, c'est Gos Kanagoa, Sheriff Doppler, Indigenous Newfoundland and Dunjaba. Dijaligi Mishkwaki Ashkwaki Minwa Irish. Anishinaabe Jinkousin Nimikimakwa Makon Dodem. Nijomanato. Shkabevas. My GST name is Sharp Doppler, and I was born in the beautiful island of Newfoundland. My people are the Sac Fox and Cherokee people, and as you can tell by my deep dark tan, my mother was Irish. My spirit name is Thunder Bear, and I'm Bear Clan, and I serve the community as a two-spirit helper, as a warrior, as a speaker of truth. I want to acknowledge that we're standing on unceded Anishinaabe Aki, and thank the Omamawinini people for giving me a good home to grow into who I am supposed to be for the last 27 years. Miigwech. Thank you. As a two-spirit person, I am a middle person. Am I a boy or a girl? The answer is yes. I use all the pronouns. I am a middle person also between the ones who came here and my ancestors who were here to greet them. I find myself in the odd position of being considered a carrier of knowledge, and to try to carry that in a good way. I'm also a drummer and a singer. And I'm going to challenge you in a minute. As Davy said, Two-Spirit people have always been here. Our way of being was disrupted and continues to be disrupted by colonization. But the fact that Capital Pride is inviting us here, inviting a grandmother from this territory to speak, inviting me, that's the beginnings of reconciliation.
We are so proud that our mayor took the time on the eve of the festival to share his personal story with the entire community. Please join me warmly in welcoming Ottawa's first openly gay mayor, Mayor Jim Watson.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you, merci. Thank you very much, Davey, for your kind words. This is my third day anniversary as an openly gay man in Ottawa. And I'm so touched by the support that I've received in the last couple of days. And I want to also thank my council colleagues, and I'd like to introduce them because they're a great team of dedicated women and men to work with. And I first start off with our Deputy Mayor, Laura Dudas, Carol-Ann Meehan, Diane Deans, Jeff Leeper, Jean Cloutier, Teresa Kavanaugh, the famous Catherine McKenney. We're now a gay caucus of two. She's the chair, I'm the vice chair. Sean Menard, Riley Brockington, Keith Egli, Stephen Blay, Matt Luloff, Mathieu Fleury, Scott Moffat, and we're joined by 3 members of Provincial Parliament, 4 members of Provincial Parliament, Mitzi Hunter, Lisa McLeod, Joel Hardin, and Mike Schneider, the leader of the Green Party. Welcome. I also want to recognize Grand Marshal Dylan Black, members of the board of directors, tous les bénévoles, festival sponsors, partners, volunteers, supporters, and members of the LGBTQ plus community, friends, supporters, and allies. La Fierté dans la capitale est un festival important à la fois pour la communauté et pour tous les résidents. As we raise the pride flag here today at City Hall, we'll also be celebrating this week by raising the pride flag at other buildings, including OC Transpo, Police, Fire, and Paramedic Headquarters, as well as other city buildings. And some people have asked in the past, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to have a parade? Well, we saw the disgusting acts that took place in Bell's Corners, and that's why we have to celebrate Pride And that's why we have to remain vigilant in our opposition to those who spew hate towards members of the community. The mission of the Ottawa Capital Pride Festival is to create an environment for advocacy, education, and the fostering of a strong and vibrant rainbow community within the National Capital Region. This year's theme, In the Spotlight, showcases people and groups who have contributed to building the LGBTQ+ movement in the past 50 years, with a focus on local community builders, 50 years, of course, since the Stonewall riots. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the volunteers and Davey as the chair, who's done a great job, and of course the sponsors of the festival who are so important. La fierté dans la capitale contribue également à faire mieux connaître la communauté. Je vous souhaite à tous et à toutes une excellente semaine de la fierté. Thank you very much for coming out in such large numbers to celebrate Pride. As you heard on the weekend, I wrote a piece. It's been 40 years that I've been in the closet. I'm a little bit of a late bloomer, my family tells me, but better late than ever. I'm very proud to be a member of the community. And thank you very, very much for the warm welcome. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
I would now like to welcome the first elected queer councillor of the City of Ottawa, Catherine McKinney.
So I get out of bed Saturday morning, I take a shower, I hop downstairs, and my wife says to me, she's sitting at the table reading the paper, she said, so Jim Watson wrote an op-ed and you're in it, you're named in it. And my first thought was, uh-oh. What did I do? Anyway, we all know the story from there, and I've got to say that I've never been happier for our mayor. Another big shout out. I think we can rouse up another one. Many of us here today know that the day you come out is the most frightening and the most exciting day of your life, and it only continues to become more exciting. But we also, as a community, have a responsibility to those who are coming behind us, those who don't share some of our privilege that each of us has, and it's important to remember that. I was invited in this past spring to go to Bogota, Colombia, to speak at a conference on what was the LGBTI leaders of the Americas. So mostly leaders from Central and South America. And I was quite pleasantly surprised at how many Indigenous, two-spirited, queer, trans women, persons of color, who are elected in what we consider to be maybe less progressive countries than ours, but they elect leaders, a diversity of leaders at a much greater rate than we do, and it got me thinking as I met people and started to have these conversations that it is something that we've got to strive for. We've got to make sure that our that Indigenous, Two-Spirit, trans persons of color, that people, persons with disabilities, that we are all raised to the tables where decisions are made, whether that's around a political table, a boardroom table. We have to be there, and we have to be diverse. The diversity of our community has got to be there for us to continue to grow and to continue to fight the type of ugly fascism we saw this past weekend. In the end, love does conquer hate. I know it's been said many, many times, but it does conquer hate. We saw it at the family barbecue, and we're seeing it here today, and we'll see it all week. And I thank everyone for coming out. Happy Pride.
I would now like to invite Ontario's Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sports, the Honourable Lisa MacLeod, to come say a few words.
Thanks very much. I'm going to do something most ministers don't do. I'm going to invite all of the opposition members that are from the Ontario Legislature up to stand with me. So Mitzi Hunter from the Liberal Caucus, Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party, and of course your local MPP will be speaking next, Joel Harden. We're going to do this because we're going to show unity. And that's what today is all about, and I couldn't be more happy to be here. But I want you all to think for just one moment before I make an announcement. Today we just heard from Ottawa's first openly gay mayor. We heard from Ottawa's first openly gay city councillor. And their strength and courage is something that we all admire. And it was, I was talking to Tatiana a little earlier, and we were talking about the flag raising a few years ago when there were about 12 people here. And now, 2 members of your city council, your mayor and your city councilor for this area, have not only been outspoken advocates for our city, but outspoken advocates for the LGBT plus community. And I think that's historic for this great city. It's 2019 for you. I want to first make an announcement how your Ontario government is supporting this Pride Festival. We will be announcing $76,000 to support the festivities of this week, as well as Winter Pride. And so I'm very excited about that investment because it's very important that we continue to support one another. It's important that we continue to have this festival, but it's also important that we bring people to our great city. And they're coming here. So every dollar we invest through Pride, we get 21 back into our economy. And that's why I think it's important that we continue to support ventures like yours, Tatiana. And we make sure that those LGBTQ plus businesses are supported this week. The second announcement I want to make is I happen to be not only the minister responsible for tourism, culture, and sport, but I'm the long-serving member of provincial parliament for Nepean, the community of Bell's Corners. And I have to say, not only do I condemn what happened on Saturday, I can say with 100% assuredness that the good people of Bell's Corners agree with me. And that's why we're going to continue to stand against hate, and that's why I am working with Capital Pride, our local city councillor, our business improvement area, and hopefully all of you, to bring back a Pride event to Bell's Corners that is bigger and better. So I want you all to come to Bell's Corners with me. And I'm going to finish on this, because I used to be minister responsible for women's issues. I would call it gender issues. And I always felt that it was important for people of a particular community, whether it was women, LGBTQ+, or anybody that was disadvantaged, to stand up for other people who needed to be stood up for. And in this case, I think it's important that all of you in the LGBTQ+ community stand up for one another. But just as importantly, when we see things that happen like they did on Saturday, it's up to your allies also to stand up for all of you in the LGBTQ+ community. And that's why your Ontario government, regardless of political affiliation, stands with you today. Happy Pride, everyone. Enjoy the week. And I hope it doesn't rain next Sunday, but if it does, rains on your parade, we're going to make sure we still have a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Welcome MPP for Ottawa Centre, Joel Harden.
Merci David. Merci Barbara. Miigwech Sharp. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Lisa. Where are you? There you are. I'm not sure about everybody else, but I've been having a few Cyndi Lauper moments over the last number of days. Girls want to have fun, for sure, but true colors. We meeting the MPP office here in Ottawa Centre. We had an event early in the afternoon, and given the call-out that happened that Lisa and Davi described, we rushed over to the Hittenburg Community Centre. And it was one of the many epiphanies I've had in the last week where I saw neighbors in the hundreds there. And you realize that as terrible and awful and disturbing as the rise of hate is in our city and around our world, it brings out the true colors in this community. And I want to name some of the people who Capital Pride has given a spotlight to this week. I want to talk about Kind Space. I want to talk about Operation Come Home. I want to talk about safety that provides space for trans kids, trans people, to be themselves. And it is Capital Pride's wonderful organizing, all of those community organizations, and there are more we could name, that provide the space for people to be themselves and for our true colors to come shining through. Brillant. Parce que comme on a intolérance dans notre ville ici, je suis agréable avec Lisa, c'est notre responsabilité pour être en solidarité avec tous et tous. Non seulement pour les questions économiques, parce qu'absolument les parades, c'est bon pour l'économie, mais en même temps, c'est bon pour les villes, on peut construire. It's important for all of us to remember why those Cyndi Lauper moments have been handed down from the bathhouse raids of the 80s, the riots at the Pussy Palace in the 80s in Toronto. This is the 50-year anniversary of Stonewall. Thank you to all of the elders, to all of the grandmothers, to all the grandfathers, the generation that fought fascism, that went overseas. We are carrying forward that fight for civil liberties today, and our city has shone through. Thank you so much. And I am so stoked, Lisa, to go to Barhaven for the next drag queen reading. I hope everybody else will be there too, because we must grow this movement. Merci tous et tous. Merci Fialité Capitale. Thank you, Capital Pride.
And now a few more congratulations. Each year, Capital Pride recognizes leaders in our community as our Grand Marshal and Youth Marshal, and new this year, our Community Champion. I will start with the Community Champion, R.J. Jones. R.J. Jones is this year's inaugural Community Champion. R.J. is Sault Cree, originally from Treaty 1 territory in Saskatchewan, and is currently living on Algonquin territory in Ottawa. He is now a two-spirit, non-binary, and queer multimedia artist, educator, and full-spectrum Indigenous doula. RJ is an experienced facilitator and educator and has been invited to give workshops and keynotes across Canada. This year's Youth Marshal is Brian Quinones. I'm pleased to recognize Brian as this year's Youth Marshal. Brian, our great friend of mine, is a champion and supporter of local community-based grassroots level organizing. They have been involved in many community organizations, including 10 Oaks, the AIDS Committee of Ottawa, Gay Zone, Kind Space, and Capital Pride. Please welcome me in congratulating Dylan Black and welcome Dylan to say a few words.
Happy Pride, Ottawa! Thank you so much to the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples for your warm welcome. My name is Dylan Black. I'm a queer, non-binary, 2S LGBTQI rights advocate, and I've called Ottawa my home for as long as I can remember. I have the special honor of being Grand Marshal this year. I came out at the age of 12 in the late 90s, when issues of 2S LGBTQ rights and representation were not quite like they are today. At the age of 19, I was a victim of a hate crime when I was walking back to my car late one night after class, and I was attacked by a group of 3 men. This moment significantly changed my life. With no support, I quit school, I lost scholarships, I was turned away, and couldn't find any support for someone who looks like me. I was targeted simply for being queer and for being non-binary. This experience changed my life and led me to become an activist and an advocate, and our Ottawa communities are such a gift. And I can honestly say that in the last 20 years, I've seen progression and hope being transformed. From legal recognition of our relationships in 2005, to rights around adoption and family planning, rights around discrimination and harassment protections, advancement in the area of HIV, non-disclosure and the blood ban, and more recently, the explicit recognition of gender identity and gender expression in our human rights framework. That was a long, hard battle won. So, these are all the things that we must keep celebrating. Pride is a celebration after all, a celebration of our strengths, our resilience, and our differences. But pride is also political. Ottawa Pride has always been political. Most people don't know this, but the reason why we have our Pride at the end of August is because in 1971, a small group of queer and trans activists stood on the steps of Parliament Hill as the first queer demonstration here in Canada. Many of them even handcuffed themselves to the banisters in the House of Commons, demanding for our rights. We still demand. Thank you so much to the elders and the generations that came before me for all the work you have done, fighting for me and for you. And almost 50 years later, we are still demanding. Because progress is not linear. The rights and freedoms we have fought so desperately for are not something we should take for granted. Today, there are still so many barriers that our communities face, from housing, health services, employment opportunities, and freedom from violence and discrimination. With the rise of extremism, we must all come together in solidarity more than ever before. We also need real commitment from our leadership. This means sustainable funding. It means resources, evidence-based policy to address all of the inequities we face, especially our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. We need to keep supporting those wonderful community organizations that we talk about that are highly in demand and so incredibly under-resourced. We will not be divided. Our communities will not allow ourselves to be used, and we will come together more than ever to demand equity and support from one another like we always have. This is what Ottawa Pride is about, because we all have a gender and a sexuality. So it's time to get back to our roots. This is about power, not just empowerment. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Dylan. That was a really powerful message. It's hot, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna raise the flag. Yeah. I just want to thank everyone involved with Capital Pride, our volunteers, T.H.E, our festival director, who's done an amazing job this year to put on a great show for everyone, and also the board, Tara, the vice chair, everyone else involved on the board. Thank you so much, and I look forward to see everyone during the week.